entire comment to say about an individual that they cared about their neighbor, they cared about their fellow man, and that they were a good man. Speaker Ralston was all of the above.
House Speaker John Burns remembers his predecessor as they unveil a portrait of the late Speaker David Ralston. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on this day 35 of the Georgia legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. Agriculture is the state's oldest industry, and it continues to grow and thrive. It's evolving with the times when it comes to technology. Mule-drawn farm equipment is not only long gone, but artificial intelligence keeps Georgia's farming industry moving. The Georgia Department of Agriculture oversees an operation that makes sure the food you eat is safe. I sat down with Georgia's Commissioner of Agriculture, Tyler Harper, to talk about the industry. We'll also talk to two state senators about what's being called Georgia's Silicon Valley of agriculture. But first, Capitol correspondent Sarah Callis gives us a rundown on the busy day under the Gold Dome.
Hi, Donna. Lawmakers honored a former leader today. They also took up a contentious issue relating to education. The day started with a press conference commemorating the 3rd anniversary of the Atlanta spa shooting, held by the Asian American Pacific Islander Legislative Caucus.
Soon Chung Park, Hyun Jung Grant, Sun Cha Kim.
The victims' names were read by Representative Michelle Au, as they are each year. Representative Rua Roman told the crowd more still needs to be done.
This moment reminds us time and time again of the urgency to address not just violence, but particularly violence against women and gun violence. It is incumbent upon us as elected officials to address this emergency because it is an emergency. Whether it's gun violence or violence against women, there are things we can do that do not involve scapegoating immigrants and further exacerbating dangers against them.
The House kicked off the day with a celebration for the late Speaker David Ralston's birthday.
Speaker Ralston had a generational impact on our state. Not merely by his years of service, but the care and love that he had for the members of this House that he loved so dearly, but more importantly, for the people of this state.
House leaders unveiled a portrait of Ralston. Governor Brian Kemp and former governors Nathan Deal and Sonny Perdue also praised Ralston's legacy.
May Speaker Ralston's memory continue to live on as long as this portrait hangs in these hallowed halls. Thank you all for having me, and God bless.
After the tribute, the House debated a contentious bill that members rejected last session for nearly 2 hours. SB 233 establishes a $6,500 scholarship for students attending low-performing public schools to use to attend a private school. Supporters continue to say the bill offers choices for students and their families.
Georgia has offered a variety of state education programs with state funding for as long as 30 years for students, with no apparent downside to government-owned schools and colleges and to the benefit of the students given educational choice.
But critics say it does not fix problems Georgia's education system is facing.
Vouchers don't work. They don't work for poor people. They don't work for underserved. They don't work for Title I schools. They only work for a certain few. And generally, those few don't need the help.
The bill passed the House 91-82 this time. It still needs to go back through the Senate because of changes the House made. The Senate remembered David Ralston as well today. A Senate resolution was passed that urged the naming of a building on the University of North Georgia's campus after the late House Speaker.
We have fond memories of him. We don't always agree with one another in this chamber, regardless of which party you're in, but I think we know that Speaker Ralston was firm and fair, and he was deliberate, and he had wisdom. With that wisdom came a lot of common sense, which was marinated with experience.
But Republican Senator Colton Moore spoke out against Ralston.
This body is about to perpetually memorialize, in my opinion, one of the most corrupt Georgia leaders we'll ever see in our lifetimes.
Making unfounded claims of malfeasance against the former Speaker's law practice. before he was shut down by the Senate president.
Let's be mindful, be respectful, and know whatever personal grievances you might have, pick and choose when you pick the moment in time when you want to express those feelings, because today was not one of them.
When the House heard of what the senator said, they took their own actions.
I'm going to ask the doorkeeper of this house, Corey Mulkey, no time in the future will the senator from the 53rd be allowed to come into that anteroom or any property of the Georgia House. Mr. Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I absolutely 100% second that.
SR 687 was passed 53-1. 6 other bills were also brought to the floor. Most notable, HB 1339 would revise and make the rules surrounding the certificate of need, the trigger needed to make the construction of hospitals, medical facilities, and even nursing homes, especially in more rural areas, easier.
It is not a wholesale elimination of the certificate of need requirements. We're targeting certain areas where we want to make it easier to provide medical services to Georgians. Less barriers, to not have to jump through all this red tape and regulatory approval process to try to give medical services to our citizens. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Every one of us in this room might see parts of this bill we wished wasn't there, or maybe that went further, or that, man, if I could just take this piece out. You're not going to get it to perfect. You may not like every section or every provision, but if you want to make progress on health care in Georgia, this is the vehicle to do it.
But Democrats say that CON won't fix the problem without Medicaid expansion to help keep new facilities financially viable.
So I think it's important to continue to move forward, because without Medicaid expansion, we're actually depriving a lot of these new facilities that are trying to get to the heart of healthcare in Georgia, depriving them of customers and, quite frankly, income.
Despite the concerns, the bill passed with bipartisan support, 43-11. Lawmakers return to the Capitol on Monday for Day 36. That's all for my Capitol Report. Back to you, Donna.
Thanks, Sarah, for that report. Agriculture is a key to Georgia's healthy economic engine. The state's Department of Economic Development says the industry pumps $74 billion into the state's economy. This is the #1 state for broilers, hatching eggs, and peanuts. Georgia has nearly 1 billion acres, 9.9 million, in operating farmland. And Georgia is the first state to have a Department of Agriculture, and it's 150 years old this year. Earlier this week, I spoke to the state's 17th commissioner, Tyler Harper, about a range of issues. I began with asking him about agriculture needs in the state budget.
For our #1 industry to be successful, we've got to have the resources to ensure that the agency that oversees that industry is successful, and as well in that consumers can rest assured that their food is safe, that food security is paramount, and we work to do that every single day. But you know, our farm families have been facing a lot over the last few years, and the issues we've been dealing with. We've seen the retail dollar back to the family farm in just the last 10 years decline by about 20%. It's declined by 50% since 1980. And so it's been difficult in agriculture in some aspects. So when you see the retail dollar go in that direction, obviously that's going the wrong direction on our family farms. And so working to ensure that we have the right policies in place, but also have the resources we need as an agency to help ensure that our farm families are successful. That's what we're working to do across the street with our friends in the Capitol and under the Gold Dome. Because if we're not successful, we can't help our farm families and our ag industry and our consumers across the state be successful as well. So we look forward to continuing those conversations to ensure that all of agriculture can continue to be successful in the great state of Georgia.
Let's talk about a specific part of the farming industry, and that's hemp farming. Yep. You had some bills dealing with hemp farming. Talk about those.
So we do. The hemp industry is one of the newest industries, if not the newest industry in the state. As you know, just a little brief background in the Farm Bill, Federal Farm Bill, it legalized hemp production in America. And so as a state senator, I was actually on the forefront of that, working with one of my colleagues and former colleagues, Representative John Corbett. He and I are actually the ones that work together to set the groundwork for the hemp industry in the state of Georgia. Obviously, we didn't know everything then whenever we were working to get it off the ground like we know now. So what we're working on are common sense bipartisan legislation that we've seen implemented in other states across the country. But it does a few simple things. It ensures that our hemp industry, number one, can be successful in the state of Georgia, both industrial hemp products, whether you're making rope or you're making board or concrete out of it, or on the consumable side, the products that people use in some cases that they utilize, whether it's an oil or another type of product. And so ensuring that it's successful is key. And I think the important part is the hemp industry in our state is supporting what we're doing. They are very supportive of the work that we're doing. So we have their support. We have the support of our sheriffs, the prosecutors, and many, many legislators, obviously, because we've been working with them to help us get across the finish line. But it does a few simple things. It adds clarity in the law. It requires for those products being sold to have a certificate of analysis, so the consumer knows what's in that product, which I think is very important. It restricts sales on those consumable products to anyone under 21. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen here, even in the Atlanta area, where we've had some children sent to the ER because they got a hold of a product that unfortunately put them in a situation where they had to be sent to the hospital. And so keeping these products out of kids' hands, consumer protection, the consumer knows what they're buying, those are vital components of ensuring that we have a hemp industry that can be successful. And so if you sell a product in our state, the consumer knows what they're buying.
Commissioner, you've launched an effort to fortify the food supply chain in Georgia. Right. Talk about that a little bit.
So yes, we have. We have a new grant program. We've been partnering with USDA, obviously, over numerous programs, and this is another perfect example of that, of a federal-state partnership. The RFSI grant is a program that helps us ensure that middle-of-the-road supply chain and our food supply chain is taken care of, both in equipment and also infrastructure. It's one thing to be able to grow a product on the farm. It's one thing to sell a product in the retail store, but you got to take that product that we sell on the farm and be able to ensure that we're packaging it into something and it can be delivered to that store. So it's that middle of the road sector that this grant is focused on. It's a little over $7 million that we're going to be distributing to individuals throughout the state. Applications are open right now. I think it's georgiarfsi.com that you can go to that website and if you are that individual that is in that middle of the road in the food supply chain sector, to help us ensure that we're getting the freshest Georgia-grown products possible to the store and to the consumer. And so this is an awesome opportunity for us to put more Georgia-grown goods on kitchen tables all around the state.
Okay, let's talk about artificial intelligence and what's happening in farming, things that people would be surprised about.
Yep. So, when you think about agriculture, I think you got to kind of go back a little bit. So 1954 was the first year that there were more tractors in the fields across America than there were mules. So 70 years ago was the first time that we had more mechanical equipment than we did livestock or mules operating fields. So that hadn't been that long ago. And even prior to that, there was a lot of advent and invention that moved agriculture forward. But we've seen significant advancement in the last 15, 20, 30 years than we've seen in agriculture in centuries. And so artificial intelligence and precision agriculture is an important part of moving the ball in the right direction. We have tractors now that drive themselves without anybody in them. We have technology of planters that cut themselves on and off, irrigation equipment that will only water in areas where water is actually needed and does it all automatically. And all of this is using and integrating that artificial intelligence to know where in the fields, where in the supply chain, where in the production of a certain commodity, where do we need to make those minor adjustments to ensure that we're getting the most out of that particular commodity that we're growing, whether it be beef, pork, lamb, chicken, or commodities like peanuts and cotton and corn and tobacco or whatever it is. And so it's really amazing. I'm really excited about the future of agriculture from a precision perspective, because I think most Americans, when they think of agriculture, they think of cows, plows, and sows. But agriculture is way more than that. And through innovation and technology and precision agriculture, we can show that it is way more than that it is a high-tech industry. And we've got to have individuals that are willing to go in this industry that have that understanding and that knowledge. Tractors today have thousands of lines of computer code. 25 years ago, they had no computer code.
Anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I think a couple of things, just really quick. We've, at the Department of Agriculture, we just celebrated our 150th anniversary. We're the nation's first state Department of Agriculture, which is really cool. So Georgia was on the forefront as a state Department of Agriculture, created in 1874. And February 28th of this year was exactly 150 years of the department's existence and 150 years of serving Georgia farmers, farm families, producers, ranchers, and consumers all over this state. So we're really excited about what we've done for 150 years and as an agency, but we're looking forward to the next 150 years and what agricultural opportunities are going to bring to our state.
I want to thank Commissioner Harper for that conversation. You can find information about the grant he mentioned, the Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Program, on the Georgia Department of Agriculture website. And there's much more to that interview, including his department's investigation into an illegal food manufacturing facility in Pierce County that turned up something different from what they expected. We'll put that interview on gpb.org. And coming up, we will continue talking about agriculture. 2 state senators will tell us how Georgia is embracing AI, including a new high-tech farm in Perry. Stay with us.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
People put their faith in PBS because they know that it is constantly delivering quality. It covers the whole of the United States. It's a free and independent media.
We go where the viewers are.
What are the conversations that are happening right now?
We feel that civil discourse is a civic responsibility.
What we do is authentic reporting that people can trust.
We give time so you can hear voices on all sides of an issue.
This is the place that people turn to for stories that matter.
And they know that when they walk away, they will have learned something about the world around them.
That's why this makes PBS important for daily life and, in the end, our world.
Thank you for joining us.
Community. Learning, working, playing, celebrating, doing life is always better together. At GPB, we aim to provide you with the tools to be able to do life together well. Our mission to educate, inform, and entertain inspires everything from our wide range of programming to our stimulating radio conversations to our fun in-person events. We've got something for everyone. Visit gpb.org/community to learn more about our upcoming events.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. Self-driving tractors, drones, Roomba vacuum-like robots that pick up eggs. It's all part of the technology in agriculture. And there's so much more with artificial intelligence. And we're going to continue our discussion with Republican Senator Larry Walker III of Perry. He's the Majority Caucus Secretary. And Republican Senator Sam Watson of Moultrie. He's an ex officio member of the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee, and he's also a farmer. So both of you, welcome to Lawmakers. So let's get started with this thing that's going to be taking place down in Perry, and it's being called the Silicon Valley of Agriculture, and it's planned in that central Georgia area. So, and I hear you came up with the idea for this.
Well, let me tell you the story, how this was born. I was at the Ag Expo in Senator Watson's hometown of Moultrie, and I was visiting some of the research plots they have there, and I was told that there was a need for a large-scale demonstration farm to test out and demonstrate some of the newest and latest technology, and I thought, well, I know where we can find that, and it's across the street from the Georgia National Fairgrounds in Perry. It's just east of the fairgrounds. 250-acre tract that we, in fact, voted this week to convey that property to the University System of Georgia so that work can begin on the grand farm. I like to call it the smart farm, but it will truly, we hope, be the Silicon Valley of ag technology.
So we've heard of smart houses. Now we've got a smart farm. What exactly what are some of the things you're going to have there?
Well, as Commissioner Harper in your earlier segment mentioned, autonomous tractors would be one, but for example, sprayers with optics and artificial intelligence built in to where they can identify, the sprayer can identify a weed versus a plant and only spray herbicide on the weed, saving about 70% of the herbicide usage. You could do the same type thing with pesticide sprayer. Variable application of fertilizer, where just the right amount of fertilizer is put in the field, variable irrigation, moisture sensors in the soil, in the plants, drones to do what I used to do as a young person, scout the crop to identify the pests in the field. Drones might be able to do that in the future. Robots to pick crops, etc.
Wow, I can't believe it can figure out where to put the pesticide. Which ones are weeds? I have a hard time figuring out which ones are weeds, but I'm not into agriculture. Let's talk about you. Have you started using AI in your farms, and what are you doing?
No, well, we use a lot of precision agriculture when it comes to our equipment and when it comes to our irrigation systems, and if we don't continue to develop more precision and more AI, the farm right now is really suffering. Because of our increased input costs, our increased labor costs that we have no control over. And, innovation and technology is going to be one of the ways that we're going to have to overcome that to keep our farms in business and to keep agriculture the #1 industry in our state.
So what kind of things do you farm? I'm sorry.
So I grow vegetables, bell pepper, squash, cucumbers, eggplant, all very labor-intensive crops that are harvested by hands. So we use a lot of H2A labor, and our labor rates have gone up over 21% in the last 14 months. And, at the farm level, we don't have anybody to pass that on to. And so we're really struggling, and it's just not a fair playing field. And one of the bright things though is innovation, and that's where we think we can maybe try to level the playing field, so to speak, because if we don't, we're going to have a lot of farms that continue to shut down and go out of business.
Right. So you must be excited about what's going to happen right in your area with this grand farm.
Yes. As the chairman mentioned, we've got the Sunbelt Ag Expo in Moultrie that's been doing a lot of this research for a long time, and right now, anybody and everybody we can get in the innovation game, I think, will be, greatly appreciated. We can't do enough in that area right now because, as I mentioned, that's how we're going to have to bridge the gap going forward and keep our farmers in business.
Okay. I want to talk about some things I heard about. So, like these robots that pick up the eggs that the hens don't leave in the right place. Tell us about something like a vacuum or something like that, like a Roomba.
Yeah, so that you mentioned in your lead up that we're the #1 for layer hens or layer chickens in the world. And so that's a huge industry in Georgia. Georgia Tech is working on so everybody wants cage-free eggs now. So when you have cage-free chickens, they're roaming around in the chicken house. They're supposed to lay their eggs in the nest up off the, not in the floor of the chicken house. Once one chicken starts laying their egg on the floor of the chicken house, all the other chickens, it's kind of like humans, will follow that bad habit if you don't get that egg picked up. And if an egg's laid on the floor, it gets contaminated by the chicken litter or other things, so it's not sellable. So you don't want eggs on the floor of the chicken house. This little Roomba-looking thing will go, it can see the egg and go pick it up. And if there's a chicken in its way, it will gently nudge the chicken out of the way and then pick up the egg so that the other chickens don't follow suit and start mass chaos and laying eggs all over the floor of the chicken house.
You just don't think about those kinds of things. So yeah, that's fascinating. I think it's great. So anything that you think is interesting that people don't know that's happening in farming with AI?
Well, you know, we use sticker machines a lot now, and it's another thing that we've worked with Georgia Tech recently and trying to develop some better technology there. Because all of our produce has to be stickered now. So we sticker all our bell peppers, we sticker cucumber, we sticker eggplant. That way when you go to the grocery store, you know exactly where that product came from and they can trace it all the way back to the farm. And that's new technology that's come about that we're trying to improve. Obviously our GPS guided tractors have been around for a long time, but we couldn't do it without them today, and they make us a lot more efficient. So just excited, even from a growing standpoint, an agronomic standpoint. We meet with the University of Georgia on our plant breeders, and how, we were talking the other day about how do we grow a cucumber that doesn't have a yellow belly on it, and how do we breed a pepper plant that doesn't necessarily have to be staked every 5 plants. It's just there again to save labor, to be able to market more produce, because a yellow belly cucumber is not very marketable. Everybody wants a solid green one. So if we can make them all solid green, then the farmer can generate more revenue, and the consumer, obviously has a prettier cucumber. So things like that, that's where we're headed, and that's what makes agriculture exciting.
And I hear you're interested in making sure you level the playing field a little bit when it comes to farming. Talk about that.
Well, we're at an extreme disadvantage right now with our competitors, which is Mexico and South America, where labor costs down there, where they're harvesting the same crops that we're harvesting here in the United States, they're paying around $1.50 an hour. When my H-2A workers get here in April this year, we're going to be paying them $14.68 an hour. And on top of that, I provide them with housing while they're here. I provide them with transportation while they're here, and I pay for their transportation to and from Mexico. And also provide them with workman's compensation, and then also have to guarantee them 40 hours a week worth of work while they're here. So, and we're picking the same crops and producing the same crops that they are. And then there's also in the regulatory environment and the food safety environment, where our farm is audited by third-party auditors. Our farm is audited by our Georgia Department of Agriculture. So we have those food safety inspections in place, and then the regulatory environment that goes along with that, which we don't really know what they have south of the border, and that's scary when you look at a food security standpoint and a food safety standpoint. And there again, if we don't get better technology, better innovation to help lower some of those labor costs, it's just really difficult, because I'm selling my crops today for the same thing I sold them for 15 years ago when I started farming, and that's just not sustainable.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's interesting to hear some of the things that are happening. I do have to ask you about another one I heard with AI, a way to optimize the roasting flavor of peanuts through genetics, so it will taste better.
Right, we're the number one peanut producer Georgia is, and we want to stay that way. And we want to have a peanut that suits the consumer's taste, and so there's been efforts to make sure we're doing that. What I'm excited about, 2 things on the Grand Farm that I'm excited about. We've got the most efficient, Georgia farmers are the most efficient farmers in the world, or they would not survive. But if we don't give them the tools to become even more efficient, which technology can do, I'm afraid the family farm will not survive. Also, this is located in an area that is high profile by the Georgia National Fairgrounds, and it will be a place for our young people, our 4-H and FFA kids, to see what the future holds, get them interested and inspired to get into agriculture, because we need a new generation of farmers to come along. And this will be a place, I think, to build excitement and with them.
Okay, well, we're running out of time, but I appreciate you both coming out. I learned a lot, I really did. That does it for Lawmakers Today. We return on Monday to talk about education issues and more. Have a good night.